Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we do have yet another project going, and what's happening today is power steering pump. It is going out. It's pretty scary when you're driving, all normal, making a turn, and all of a sudden the power steering just cuts out. You can't really steer. So we're gonna get that changed out. Ended up being like 78 bucks off Amazon, and same day delivery, can't beat it. Ordered it yesterday and got it today. So we're gonna be doing that. I'm gonna show you step by step on what I'm gonna be doing to change out this power steering pump. It seems a little sketchy at first if you've never done one, but it's not too bad. But you do have to drop the subframe. So you gotta drop the engine about 4 inches so that way you can get to the 2 bolts that are holding on the power steering pump. It's not gonna be too difficult. Right now I do have it up on jack stands, and then I do have a floor jack, and that is underneath the subframe, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But I'm not going to go over on how to put jacks on the car because that's not what this video is about. So what I'll do is I'm going to get this tire off, and then I'll start filming from right there. But for all you guys watching the videos, appreciate it. Just remember, hit that subscribe button. I need to get my numbers up a little bit, so help me out with that. Like the videos, and please put a comment on there. But we'll get back to it. All right, so what we have here is our new power steering pump, and it's actually going to fit up on the car just like that. So you're going to have a bolt that's right there, one right there. So let me kind of show you. Get a flashlight so you guys can see. Okay, so that is your power steering pump right there. You can see that. So right there, there's one bolt that's completely covered with crap. The other bolt's gonna be right behind there, and it's gonna be kind of hard to get to. See if I can get up in there with the camera. But this is why you need to drop the car, so that way you can get to, well, I think that's it right there. So there's a bolt right behind there. So what we're gonna end up doing is dropping parts of the subframe. All right, so underneath the car, this is on the passenger side. We're gonna have to take these 2 bolts out, 15 mils and a 21 mil. So we'll have to take these 2 off, and then this bolt, and then while having the jack stand underneath it holding the passenger side of the subframe, all right, so once you got that rear one off, 2 little 15s, 21, and you come up here to the front, and you're gonna have 2 more 15 mil bolts, and then you got your 21. So you're gonna take the whole passenger side off completely, and make sure you have the jack underneath, because this whole subframe is supporting your engine. So now let's walk over to the driver's side. And then on the driver's side, what we're gonna end up doing is, so right there you got your bracket right there. There's your 21, and just behind it you got your 2 15 mil bolts. You're just gonna want to loosen those up. Do not take them out completely, because your day will be, it'll not be fun. And once you get those loosened up, if the back ones, when you loosen them up, if the passenger side does not drop about 4 inches, then you'll have to come to the front one. You'll undo those 2 15 mil and come up here to this 21, and you're just gonna loosen it just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot, because it's just these 2 big old bolts that are pretty much holding on that subframe. So you don't need a whole lot. So just, you're gonna loosen those up just enough so that way that passenger side can drop 4 inches, and then you can get to those bolts, and then you can get to the hose clamps that actually go on to your power steering. So with it sitting in the car like this, you got a low pressure, high pressure hose, you got your top bolt and bottom bolt. So what we'll do is we'll get going on that. But first things first, I mean, you don't need to take off any of these coverings, because if you see that shiny piece, that's your frame. It's not going to really matter taking this off, because underneath it you can see frame. So if you really wanted to, you can take off this little clamp right there, then it'll expose your tensioner for your belt. That's right up in there, you can't see it. Let me get this off and I'll show you. Alright, so all I'm going to do is stick a flathead in this little piece right here, slowly work it out, and then this is just the cover so you can actually get to your tensioner pulley. And once you get that up, let me get a camera for you, or a flashlight. Alright, so right up in there, it's kind of hard to see. You're going to be turned all sideways. That guy right there, that's your belt tensioner pulley, and you can see it has a little square. You can probably see it pretty good right there. There's a little square in there, and what you can use is, I end up having this cheater bar, and I will use this just to put into that square, and then you can take that belt off. Alright, so I got my breaker bar up on that tensioner pulley, and all I'm going to do is just move it back, and you can see that belt right there. You can see the tension of it come off, and all I'm going to do is come over to where the power steering pump is, which is right over here, and I'm going to take off the belt from the bottom of it and then let go of this bar. All right, and that's it. So now that we have the belt off of the power steering, you see that right there, I do have the belt off. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start taking off these bolts underneath. Those two 15mm bolts and that 21, so we'll get going on that. And then you do want to drop these all the way, just on the passenger side. Now let's move to the front. All right, so now that we have those off, now the passenger side is completely disconnected on the front and rear. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the driver's side. As you can see, the subframe is starting to drop. Okay? And that's all I'm going to go. Let's do. Okay, as you can see, the whole subframe started dropping. That subframe is holding your motor as well, so I can't stress this enough. Do not take those out all the way. Unless you have a jack on both sides, but I just have one on the passenger side. That's all we need. All right, so I got you set up on the passenger side. This is just behind where the wheel and tire would connect. So this is your tie rod, and just right here you can see the bottom of the pulley. That is your power steering pump right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly drop the jack, and you will see that power steering pump, it'll start to slowly come down. And that's because I'm going to be lowering the whole subframe. See if I can get a picture of everything. See if you can kind of get that. Alright, so you can still see part of the pulley and everything. You can see where my jack is underneath the subframe on the passenger side. I'm going to slowly drop it. All right, so I think I dropped it just enough. We're only a couple inches down on there. I believe that freed up just enough room to where I can fit my hand up in here. And I can actually get my hand up in there now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and try and take this off from right here. All right, guys, so now that we have the subframe dropped, you have better access to your power steering pump. And the belt's off of it. We already took that off. So now what we need to do is, before I take off the bolt that's behind this low pressure line right here, and that guy right there, I'm gonna end up taking off this low pressure hose. And what that will do is that's going to allow all of the fluid coming from the reservoir to leak out. So what we do have right here is we got our little catch can, little drain pan. So make sure you have one underneath you. If not, you're going to get fluid everywhere. But so what we'll do is we'll proceed with taking off this low pressure, and it is going to be a little clamp. The low pressure is a clamp, so I'm going to squeeze those two tabs together, and then I'll slide that hose up, and then that'll give me access to the high pressure line. Slowly going. All right, so we got that clamp slid up. Aim up, bro. So you can see we got that clamp slid up. So now I'm gonna try and get this hose pushed up. What I'm gonna have to end up doing is taking off this 10mm bolt, and what that'll allow me to do is to be able to move this little flange out of the way, and then it'll get me some access to this high pressure nut right up here. So I'm gonna take off this 10 mil and hopefully slide away that little flange, and we'll continue going. Move this little elbow off of the power steering pump. Alright, looks like that worked. Since I got that out, I'm gonna remove the elbow from that little line. Now you can see I have the elbow right here. I'm just gonna place that in my catch can. Alright guys, so that's your low pressure line right there, and this is your high pressure. So I don't have a wrench that's big enough, so I ended up using some channel locks. And all I did was, I'm pretty sure it's a 17, maybe a 16, but I just put the channel locks up on the side of it. You can easily get up in there and break it loose. It's not too bad. But yeah, I was able to get the channel locks onto that and break it loose, and now it's just finger tight. I'll get in there and I'll just loosen it up. Alright, so what I have right here is I got a 15 hooked up to a wobbly and 2 extensions, and now I'm going to loosen up that top bolt that's up behind the pulley. There's no way I can even film to get it up in there unless I get underneath. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So let me take that off. Alright, so we got the bolt right there, and now we just need to take off this bottom one. Alright, so now that we got the bottom bolt off, I'm going to try and slide this power steering pump out. Okay, so getting this out is not going to be fun. It's just really tight. This is probably why people don't want to mess with doing it themselves, which I don't blame them. Maybe I need to try and drop the motor just a little bit more if I can. I'm gonna try and drop that motor just a little bit more, see what I can't do. I don't know if there's enough. Alright, I was able to drop it, but it doesn't seem like there's enough room to get this out yet. There we go. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to get a new one in. Alright? Jeez. Alright, so this is the old power steering pump. And it's leaking everywhere. Alright, so as it sat in the car, I'm just letting it drip. Okay, so it's sitting like this. And what you gotta do is you gotta be able to get to this top bolt right here. Brian, see if you can shine it up on in there. Okay, you can see that shiny spot right there. That is where that bolt will hook into on the bottom, and then up here, right there, go up a little bit more, tilt up. right there. Okay, and that shiny part is where the top part of the power steering pump connects into. And then right here you have your high pressure line and your low pressure line. So now let's try and get this new power steering pump in. Alright guys, so what I ended up doing is I went to the driver's side front bolt and I unbolted that main 21 just a little bit more and ended up coming all the way out. So I made the mistake of going too far. Don't do what I did. But we're still fine. I still got a jack underneath. I still got the 21 bolt on the rear side of the driver's side, so we'll be fine. But as far as this new power steering pump, it does have fluid in it from the factory when they made them. So all I'm going to do is grab a flathead, twist this off. And the reason why they lube it is that way no contaminants will get inside. And I don't care about the fluid inside this because I have new stuff. I don't want to run what they have in here. I feel I don't need to. So now all I'm going to do is take off this little gasket. I'm just going to work it all the way around, try not to scratch that surface. See if I can pull it off by hand. There we go. Alright, and there wasn't much in there. So now what I'm going to do is try and fish this up in there. And the reason why I took off this 90-degree bracket is because I wasn't able to pull it off the hose. But now that once we get this positioned up inside, I'll be able to put that low side, hook it up on here, and then I can push this up in place. So, alright, so what I'm going to do is, and it came out with the 90, so I'm going to take this 90 off. So it's a 10mm bolt. Really didn't want to do this, but that's alright. And then it does have the O-ring inside. I just got to make sure that I do not get any contaminants inside that, which is going to be pretty hard. Let's see if I can put this on. Oh, I can shove this in there. Let's try this, bud. Maybe this will give us enough room. Close, but it's not. Can't seem to get it up in there, Brian. Oh, there we go. Let's see if I can maneuver this around inside. So I'm literally having to fish it upside down, and I still don't know if I'm going to be able to do it like this. We'll find out here in a few minutes. Get that turned around. All right, I think we're able to do that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of those bolts into the bottom. Got that bolt in. I'm going to try and feed this upper bolt through the top while I got those hoses disconnected. And you're pretty much going to have to go off of fill, so it's almost impossible to get to that. All right, looks like that is screwing in. All right, so we got our 15 millimeter, we got our swivel, and then I got this extension. And what helps with this extension is it has a kind of a built-in swivel to it. It's beveled on it. So, and that gives me a little bit of play to it. Not a whole lot. And then another extension. That way I can get to the very back and get to this bolt. And it is tight, guys, so just take your time. Don't get frustrated. Alright, looks like I got on there. Alright, so now that we have that on that bolt, I'm going to slowly start using the gun to zip it on. Alright, now that we got that on, so I went slow at first until I knew I had a good bite on it. And then once I got that good bite, go ahead and zip it on. Alright, so now we got those bolted in. Now what I need to do is make sure that O-ring is still inside. And you can see, you can barely see a little bit of a black ring right there. So the O-ring's still there. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get that 90 hooked up onto this tube, that little black tube right there, and we'll go from there. All right, so what I ended up doing was I took off this 90 and I put on this high pressure line and then put this 90 back on. So now all I got to do is get this little clamp that goes over the hose, and next thing will be to do is to completely clean off all this old power steering fluid. So I got the clamp on there. Power steering pump is on. Everything's bolted. All the lines are connected. And the same way as you take off your belt, that's how you're going to put it back on. All right, looks like the belt is on. So now what I'm going to do is, now that everything's hooked up, ready to go, I'm going to start to raise the subframe. So now what I'll do is I'll grab the bolts and I will put them back in place where they need to go.
Just getting them threaded on. So
we buttoned up the subframe. I put the tire back on, got everything taken out from underneath it. So now we're just gonna fill up. I already took off the oil cap, took off the dipstick for the power steering. I'm gonna top everything off, start her up, and then we'll have to cycle through a couple turns. And what that will do is it'll help push that fluid and get it circulating through the pump and everything, and to get all the bubbles out of it. And not that much fluid came out of there, so I don't want to overfill this. I'm just going to fill it up to the max, start it up, do a couple turns on it. Alright, now let's double check this fluid. Should have sucked some of it down, which it did. So you don't want to run it for too long because you don't want to burn up your pump. And you might go through a full bottle.
The skateboard's turning by itself.
Is it a ghost? Is it a ghost?
Yeah, it's moving and turning.
All right, let's try it again. And I may have to do this a couple of times. We're almost there. All right, looks like we're just below the max. I'm gonna top it off just a little bit more. And here's the thing is, we'll go for a drive and just keep an eye on it. But other than that, that's basically it. Just start it up, cycle it through a couple of turns. Make sure all the fluid gets circulated through your rack and pinion, and then your power steering pump as well. So you're gonna have to start it up, turn it just a little bit, hurry and shut it off. You don't want to burn up your motor or the power steering pump. Just keep this reservoir full. If you don't do that, all this work was for nothing. And then after it's staying full, just look underneath, and I don't see any drips. It's not dripping. Call it a success. So, all right, guys, it's gonna take you a little bit, but you're roughly $75 for the power steering pump, and for the fluid, I think that was like $10, maybe a little bit less. So it's not that expensive of a job. I'm gonna be, I'll get an alignment on this thing down the road. It's wise to do one, but if you mark where your subframe's at, you don't necessarily have to get an alignment, but I'd recommend one. That's another $100, $120. But still, the overall savings, depending on the shop, you could be $600 to $1,000 savings. So, may as well do it yourself. This video has a lot of content in it. Just make sure you're watching through it, and if you have to, pause it, reverse it, whatever you got to do. But thank you guys for watching, appreciate it. And if you have any comments, just leave a comment, please. And remember to like and subscribe. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. All right, not too bad. All right, guys, power steering pump is done. So the wife is happy now. And just make sure you guys are keeping up on your maintenance. Make sure you guys subscribe to the videos. I got quite a bit of content. Appreciate it, guys.